Right now, somewhere, a chef in a spotless white coat is using actual tweezers to place one single microscopic herb on a plate, like he's defusing a bomb instead of making lunch. A camera captures every twitch of his wrist. People watch this for hours, willingly. Something about that ritual feels important, almost sacred, even though it's just a leaf. But the real story behind why we treat chefs like culinary wizards is far stranger and far funnier than anything happening in that kitchen tonight. 600 years ago, the kitchen looked nothing like this. No cameras, no tweezers, just smoke, heat, and a hierarchy so rigid it would make a Michelin-starred kitchen look like a casual potluck. And yet, if you trace the family tree of that tweezer-wielding chef back far enough, you'd land in a medieval castle kitchen. You'd find a man whose job wasn't just to feed people. His real job was to perform power in front of anyone rich enough to be invited to watch him do it. Start with the building itself, because medieval architects clearly trusted cooks about as much as you'd trust a toddler with a lighter. In a wealthy household, the kitchen was often its own separate building, set apart from the main hall entirely. Fire was the reason. One dropped ember and the whole estate could go up in flames, so cooks worked at a safe distance, sending finished dishes across an open courtyard on foot. Picture dinner literally traveling outdoors, through wind and rain, carried by a servant sprinting like he's trying to win Olympic gold in soup delivery, all so the food stayed hot by the time it hit the table. Inside that fireproof bunker of a kitchen, the hierarchy was strict, almost military. At the top sat the master cook, sometimes called the chief cook, who often barely touched raw food himself. He directed, he did not dice. Think less hands-on chef, more general standing on a hill, pointing. Beneath him, roasters, who wrangled open flame all day. Saucers, who built the elaborate spiced sauces nobility expected with literally every course. Pastry workers, who shaped sugar and dough into actual sculpture. And scullions, the lowest rank, stuck scrubbing pots in water that never, ever got properly warm. Boys as young as 10 or 11 entered that kitchen as apprentices, clawing their way up the ranks over a decade before anyone let them near a roast. Sound familiar? It should. That's basically the plot of every kitchen movie ever made, just 6 centuries earlier and with worse plumbing. Notice something else about that hierarchy while you're standing in it. Metaphorically, with soot on your face. Almost every rank in that professional kitchen, from master cook down to the lowest scullion, was filled by men. Outside the castle walls, in ordinary peasant homes, cooking was overwhelmingly a woman's daily task, unpaid and almost entirely unrecorded by history. The instant cooking became a paid profession tied to status and spectacle, it quietly became something men got trained into and credited for. Convenient, that timing. That divide never fully closed. And you can still hear faint echoes of it whenever someone calls cooking dinner at home just cooking, but calls the same task performed under restaurant lighting cuisine. The food historian Terence Scully spent decades studying surviving medieval recipe collections, and his research documents just how specialized and tiered this system already was, centuries before anything resembling a modern restaurant brigade existed. One of the most famous of these surviving collections, compiled for the kitchens of King Richard II of England, lists well over 100 dishes, organized with the kind of obsessive precision that reads less like a cookbook and more like a battle plan with extra cinnamon. Here's where it gets stranger. You probably picture medieval food as gray, bland, a sad lump of meat next to a sadder lump of bread. That image is almost entirely wrong. And frankly, medieval nobles would be a little offended on your behalf. Sugar, when a household could actually afford it, wasn't saved for dessert. It went into meat, into sauces, into basically anything a wealthy family wanted to brag about. Spices mattered even more. Cinnamon, ginger, cloves, and black pepper traveled thousands of miles by caravan and ship before reaching a European kitchen, which meant a heavily spiced dish was never really about flavor alone. It was a receipt you could eat. It told every guest at the table exactly how much money had just been set on fire to feed them, one suspiciously fragrant bite at a time. Spices were valuable enough that many great households kept them locked away, guarded by an officer sometimes called the spicer, who answered to the steward rather than to the cook. Kitchen staff had to formally request spices as needed, almost like checking a controlled substance out of evidence storage. Imagine running a kitchen where your most important ingredient has to be signed out of a locked cupboard before you're even allowed to start cooking. No wonder some of these sauces took all day. The historic